All right, today we are diving deep into Taib Saleh's incredible and honestly haunting novel, Season of Migration to the North. This is one of those stories that really sticks with you, all about the deep, psychological wounds of colonialism and this intense search for identity when you're caught between two completely different worlds.
So the whole book really boils down to this one powerful question. What does that even feel like? To be alienated from your own culture, your community, even from yourself? This single question, well, it sets the stage for everything to come.
So, let's get into it. Our story kicks off with an unnamed narrator who's just come back to his small, sleepy village of Wad Hamid in Sudan. He's been away for 7 years studying in England, and now he's finally home, ready to soak in that familiar comfort of his community right there on the banks of the Nile. And at first, everything feels right. It's peaceful, he's slipping back into the rhythm of village life, reconnecting with the people and places that made him who he is. He feels like he belongs. But that feeling of peace, it's about to be completely shattered.
Okay, so here's where things get really interesting. You've got this great contrast. While our narrator is all about embracing his home, he gets kind of fascinated by this other guy in the village, a man named Mustafa Sa'eed. Now Mustafa, he's respected, but he's a total outsider, a complete mystery. He just doesn't seem to fit, and our narrator is absolutely determined to figure out why. And then, boom, the mystery starts to unravel. One evening, completely out of the blue, Mustafa recites a poem in perfect, flawless English, which, you can imagine, shocks everyone. And later, he pulls the narrator aside and confesses that his entire life in this village, it's all been a facade. This one sentence, "I am a lie," changes everything and kicks off a story that's darker and more complex than you can imagine. And just like that, Mustafa's shocking confession begins. He starts to reveal this whole other, hidden life he lived, thousands of miles away in Europe. A life filled with brilliance, seduction, and just immense tragedy. It's a story that will change everything.
So this is Mustafa's devastating journey, laid out. He was this child prodigy under the colonial system, right? Sent to London on a scholarship. But once he's there, he twists his exotic identity into a weapon. He starts seducing English women who are fascinated by him, and it leads to 3 of them taking their own lives. His whole destructive path climaxes with the violent murder of his wife, Jean Morris. He ends up in prison, and after he's released, he just flees. He runs to this tiny Sudanese village, hoping he can just bury his entire past.
So you have to ask, what was driving him to do all this? The novel really points to this idea of psychological colonialism. See, it's not just about political power or money. It's about the damage it does inside you. That fractured sense of self you get when you're caught between the world of the colonizer and your own world. Mustafa was both a victim and, in a way, a perpetrator in this psychological war.
You know how they say the past never stays buried? Well, just as our narrator is trying to process this horrifying story, Mustafa's dark history starts to cast this long, deadly shadow over the entire village of Wad Hamid. Right after his confession, Mustafa just disappears during a flood. Everyone assumes he drowned, and honestly, he probably did it on purpose. But before he vanishes, he puts this incredibly heavy burden on the narrator. He makes him the guardian of his wife, Hasna, and their 2 young kids. And this is where tragedy just piles on top of tragedy. An old, sleazy villager named Wad Reyes demands to marry the widowed Hasna. She begs the narrator to help her, but he just hesitates. He doesn't act. So Hasna is forced into this marriage, and on her wedding night, when her new husband attacks her, she kills him, and then she takes her own life. The narrator is just crushed by guilt, knowing that his inaction sealed her fate. So now, our narrator is just haunted by all this, and he becomes obsessed with trying to understand the man who started it all. He decides he needs to see one last piece of the puzzle. A secret, locked room in Mustafa's house that no one has ever been inside. And what he finds inside, it's not the room of a Sudanese man. It's the room of a European, a perfect replica of an English study. It's filled with English books, not a single one in Arabic, and it even has a fireplace, which is totally useless in the Sudanese heat. You see, this room is the ultimate symbol of who Mustafa was, a man completely torn, a man who is truly at home nowhere. This discovery just pushes the narrator right to his breaking point. He's overwhelmed by Mustafa's legacy, by his own guilt, and he walks to the very same river that claimed Mustafa. And there he faces this final, life-or-death choice about who he is going to be. He swims way out, into the middle of the Nile, and he feels his strength give out. The current starts pulling him down, and for a second he's actually tempted to just let go, to give in to the same fate as Mustafa, to just let the river and the past wash over him.
But right there, in that critical moment, he makes a different choice. And this is the key. Where Mustafa let himself be drowned by his destructive past with the West, the narrator decides to fight. He chooses to make his own path, one that's independent of both the Western world and the suffocating traditions that got Hasna killed.
He chooses life, and his desperate cry for help, it's an act of defiance. It's him rejecting Mustafa's despair, and it's his powerful declaration that he is going to live, that he is going to connect with his community, and that he is going to define his own future on his own terms. And that is where the novel leaves us. It doesn't give you any easy answers. Instead, it poses this really profound question. The narrator chooses to live, yeah, but the ghosts of the past are still there. It makes us all wonder, right? About the struggle to build a future when you're carrying the heavy weight of history on your back.